where I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Imagine missing every single sign from someone who was right in front of you, until one explosive moment changed everything. I thought she was just being friendly. Until everything I ignored came crashing down all at once. One moment she was smiling at me across the office, the next she said something that turned my whole world upside down. I had no idea how blind I'd been, until it was almost too late. Hello, you're watching Trolling. Real stories with real twists. Let's get started. My name is Lucas. I'm 29, and I live in a small apartment just outside Phoenix. Nothing fancy. One bedroom, a balcony that barely fits a chair, and a coffee machine that probably works harder than I do. I'm a project coordinator at a shared co-working building downtown. If you've ever worked in one of those places, you know the vibe. Endless coffee smells, strangers typing like they're trying to break the keyboard, and people who practically live in conference rooms. That's where I met Pamela. I wouldn't say we were friends at first, more like two people who kept running into each other at the same coffee machine. She worked in a different company on the same floor. Social media campaigns, creative stuff. She was 27, always moving fast, always smiling at someone, and for some reason, always stopping to say hi to me. Back then, I didn't think anything of it. It was just casual. A smile, a wave, a "Morning, Lucas." I'd nod, grab my coffee, and go back to whatever deadline was trying to ruin my day. But looking back now, the signs were everywhere. I just wasn't ready to see them. One morning, she showed up with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to me and said, "You always forget breakfast." I laughed it off, assuming she must have brought extra. Or maybe someone else bailed. She didn't correct me. She just said, "Well, I didn't want it to go to waste," and walked away a little too quickly, cheeks slightly red. I didn't get it. Then came the small things. She'd stop by my desk to ask how my day was going. She'd laugh at jokes that honestly weren't that funny. She'd ask if I needed help with my presentation, even though she had her own deadlines. In my head, she was just being friendly. That's how people in her field usually act. Social, open, approachable. I never imagined any of it meant something more. I guess I was more closed off than I realized. After my last breakup, I convinced myself that no one was actually looking my way, so every little hint from Pamela just bounced off me, like I was wearing emotional noise-canceling headphones. But what if those little moments weren't so little? What if I was throwing away something real, without even knowing? One Thursday evening, she approached my desk right before I was about to leave. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual. "Some of us are having a small get-together tonight. Nothing crazy. I thought maybe you'd want to come." And I said no. Not because I didn't want to be around her. I just didn't think it mattered. I figured she was inviting me because she was inviting everyone. I didn't even look up properly when I declined. I just mumbled something about being tired and needing to catch up on laundry. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, sure. No problem." She left, and I didn't think twice about it. The next day, though, she barely said more than "morning" to me. She didn't come to the coffee machine at the same time. Didn't laugh at my jokes. Didn't stop by my desk. And only then did I start wondering, did I actually miss something? The truth is, I had missed a lot. But I wouldn't understand how much until much later. And trust me, when the truth finally hit, it hit hard. I realized something was off the Monday after that get-together I skipped. Usually Pamela was the first person I'd see near the coffee machine, bright, awake, talking to everyone like she was running for office. But that morning, she wasn't there. And when she finally walked in, she didn't even glance my way. No smile, no quick wave, nothing. I told myself I was imagining it, but the silence felt too heavy to ignore. At first, I tried not to think about it. I buried myself in emails, tasks, deadlines, anything that made me feel like everything was normal. But every time she walked past my desk without stopping, a strange discomfort stirred inside me. Not anger, not confusion, something in between, something I didn't want to admit, even to myself. Around noon, our manager informed me and Pamela that we'd be working together on a multi-company project. He said we were the most organized pair on the floor, but the timing couldn't have been worse. I wasn't sure if Pamela even wanted to talk to me anymore. We sat down in the small conference booth to review the project outline. The air felt so different, tight, cautious. Usually, she leaned in when she talked, eyes bright, hands moving. That day, she barely looked at me. Her tone clipped, professional. Still, after about 20 minutes, something shifted. She relaxed a little. Her shoulders loosened, and she made a joke about our manager still using Windows XP shortcuts. I laughed, probably more than necessary. She smiled quietly, almost to herself, and continued explaining her part of the campaign. For a moment, she felt like the old Pamela again. And just like before, I missed the meaning behind everything she did. We spent the next few days working late on presentations and reports. Pamela would sit beside me, close enough for me to feel the warmth of her arm whenever she reached across the table. Sometimes she'd look at me, hesitate as if about to say something, then turn back to her laptop. One night she handed me a USB drive and our fingers brushed. She looked up sharply, and I saw it, the same shy spark I'd noticed weeks ago. But instead of letting myself feel anything, I shrugged it off and made some dumb comment about losing half my USBs at home. She laughed, but it wasn't the same laugh. It was softer, almost sad. The truth is, I felt something too. But feelings weren't something I trusted. Not after the last relationship, where everything fell apart the moment I thought I understood it. So I convinced myself that the warmth I felt around her was nothing serious, just the comfort of working well with someone. She suggested grabbing dinner after work to celebrate finishing the proposal. And I genuinely thought she just needed a break from the office. I didn't even consider the possibility that she wanted to spend time with me. I told her I already had plans, even though those plans were just heating leftovers and watching a documentary I wasn't interested in anymore. She nodded slowly. Yeah, makes sense. Maybe another time. But I never suggested another time. The next morning, I noticed she chose a different desk in the shared workspace, one farther from mine. I watched her laugh with another coworker and told myself it didn't bother me. But then she didn't come over to ask how my evening went. And for some reason, that bothered me more than it should have. A few days later, during one of our late working sessions, I finally gathered enough courage to ask why she seemed distant. Did I do something? You've been different, I said. Pamela froze for a second, fingers paused on the keyboard. She looked at me, and behind her calm expression, there was something tired, frustrated. You never notice anything, do you? She said quietly, almost whispering, but with enough weight to make my stomach drop. I frowned, confused. Notice what? Nothing, she said, standing up abruptly. Forget it. She left the booth before I could say another word. I sat there staring at the door, completely lost, replaying everything she had said, everything she had done, every moment I might have missed. But the more I tried to make sense of it, the more everything slipped out of reach. I walked home that night with a strange heaviness in my chest. For the first time, I wondered if maybe Pamela's actions weren't just politeness. Maybe there was something more, something I had been too blind, too scared, or too convinced of my own assumptions to see. But I didn't know the answer yet. All I knew was that something between us had shifted, and I had no idea how to fix it. The days after that conversation felt strangely empty. Pamela didn't avoid me completely, but the warmth she used to carry around me was gone. She spoke to me only when the project required it, and even then, her voice was flat, careful, almost rehearsed. I tried to act unaffected, but every small change in her behavior hit me harder than I expected. I kept replaying her words in my head. You never notice anything, do you? I didn't know what I was supposed to notice. I considered asking again, but every time I saw her walking fast through the hallway or laughing politely with someone else, I hesitated. It didn't feel like I had the right to demand answers. Not when I didn't even understand the questions. By midweek, the distance between us became impossible to ignore. Before, she always chose the desk near mine during joint work sessions. Now, she picked the farthest corner of the floor. When I tried to join her, she said she needed fewer distractions. That stung more than I could admit. On Thursday, the team from the neighboring firm came for a meeting. Afterward, a few of them stayed for lunch. When I walked into the break area, I saw Pamela sitting at a table with one of the guys from that team. He was talking animatedly, leaning closer, making her laugh. I didn't know him, but I instantly disliked his confidence, his easy charm, the way he kept adjusting his sleeves like he wanted everyone to notice his watch. She looked happy, or at least she looked like she was trying to be. For some reason, my chest tightened. I told myself it was jealousy, but jealousy didn't make sense. Why would I be jealous? She wasn't mine, and I had never acted like someone who even wanted her to be. I filled my water bottle and walked out. I didn't say a word to them. I couldn't. Later that afternoon, during a project review, she kept things strictly professional. No jokes, no random comments, no small pauses where her eyes lingered on mine for just a second too long. Now she scribbled notes, adjusted her glasses, and didn't look my way once. It felt like something had broken, and I didn't know how to fix it. By evening, the weight of everything became too much. After everyone left, I knocked on the door frame of the smaller conference room where she was packing her laptop. "Pamela," I said quietly. "Can we talk?" She didn't turn. "About what?" "I don't know," I admitted. "You've been off and I don't know what I did." She zipped her bag slowly, like she needed an extra second to keep her composure. When she finally faced me, her eyes looked tired, as if she'd been carrying something heavy for weeks. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said. "That's the problem." "What does that even mean?" She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "Lucas, I tried. I really did, but you never saw any of it. Every single time I put myself out there, you just stepped over it like it didn't matter." I opened my mouth to respond, but I didn't know what to say. Because the truth was, she wasn't wrong. I had stepped over everything. Not on purpose. Not out of indifference, but because I couldn't believe she meant any of it. "You're reading too much into things," I said finally. "I just assumed you were being friendly." That was the wrong thing to say. Her expression hardened. She looked away, clasping her hands like she needed something to hold on to. "I wasn't just being friendly," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But it doesn't matter anymore." I stepped closer instinctively. "Pamela, wait." "No," she cut me off. "I'm done trying." Those words hit like a brick. Not loud, not dramatic, just painfully final. Before I could respond, she walked past me and out the door. Her perfume lingered in the air for a few seconds, warm and familiar, and then it faded too. I stood alone in that small conference room, staring at the empty doorway, feeling something in my chest sink deeper than I expected. I never realized how much her presence mattered, until she pulled it away. The next morning, she kept her promise. She was done trying. She kept things short, simple, distant. I told myself to focus on work, to ignore the tightness in my stomach every time she walked by without stopping. But the truth was unavoidable now. I had ruined something that had been there long before I was ready to see it. And the worst part was that I had no idea how to undo the damage. I didn't even know where to begin. All I knew was that something real, something fragile had slipped through my fingers, and I didn't even realize I was holding it. That entire week felt like walking around with a shadow strapped to my back. Every time I saw Pamela across the floor, every time she spoke without meeting my eyes, every time she kept that polite, distant tone, I felt the same heaviness settle deeper inside me. It was like losing something I couldn't name. Something I didn't even realize mattered until it was gone. Work became mechanical. Our conversations were stripped to the bare minimum. Deadlines, documents, tasks, nothing more. No jokes, no unexpected laughter, No quiet moments where she'd lean closer and ask if I wanted to grab lunch. She didn't invite me anywhere. Didn't linger near my desk. Didn't even pause when walking past me. She wasn't cold. She was simply done. And that hurt far more than if she had just yelled at me that day. By Wednesday, the tension started affecting the project. We miscommunicated, missed small details, and kept rewriting sections because we weren't listening to each other properly. The manager noticed and assumed we were tired. If only it were that simple. On Friday evening, after everyone else left, we were finishing the last part of the campaign report. I was typing. She was reviewing a timeline on her screen. The room felt unbearably quiet. I could hear her breathing. I could hear my own heartbeat. It was all so painfully unfamiliar, considering how natural things used to feel between us. When we finished the file, she closed her laptop and stood up, ready to leave without a word. I reacted before I thought. "Pamela," I said, standing as well. "Can we talk? Not about work. Just talk." She froze for a moment. Her shoulders tensed, her hands gripping the straps of her bag. She didn't turn around. "About what, Lucas?" Her voice was tired, not angry, which somehow hurt even more. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But something's broken, and I don't want it to stay that way." Slowly, she turned to face me. Her eyes looked tired, guarded. I could tell she already expected disappointment from whatever I'd say next. She grabbed her keys. "Fine, outside. I want to go home." We walked out of the building and onto the parking lot. The sun had already set, and scattered street lights cast long shadows on the asphalt. Pamela stopped near her car, crossing her arms while leaning against the door. She looked like she was bracing herself. "So?" she asked quietly. I swallowed. "I feel like I messed everything up. I didn't mean to. I'm trying to understand what I did." She actually laughed, but not happily, more like she couldn't believe she was hearing this. "You really don't know?" she asked, shaking her head. "After everything?" "I'm not pretending," I insisted. "I swear I'm trying to understand." She closed her eyes for a moment, frustrated. When she opened them again, they were filled with something raw. Disappointment mixed with exhaustion. "I gave you every hint I could, Lucas," she said. "I brought you coffee. I stayed late for you. I asked you out, for God's sake, and you just shrugged everything off like it meant nothing." My chest tightened. "It wasn't nothing," I said, stepping forward. "I just didn't want to misread things. I thought you were being friendly." Pamela's expression cracked, like I had said the one thing she hoped she wouldn't hear. "You keep saying that," she whispered. "Friendly, polite, normal. But I wasn't being any of that. I was trying to show you I cared. And you kept making it seem like I was imagining things." She took a shaky breath and looked away. "You made me feel stupid." That hit hard, harder than anything before. I stepped closer. "Pamela, I never meant." She cut me off with a frustrated, broken laugh. She ran a hand through her hair, pacing once in front of me, like she was trying to stay calm. "Do you know how hard it was?" she said. "Do you know how many times I tried to say something? How many times I hoped you'd just look at me and see more than a coworker?" Her voice cracked. "And you just never did." Silence hung between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, I said the only thing I could. "I didn't understand." She clenched her jaw, her eyes filling with angry tears. She tried to blink away. "Exactly," she said. "You didn't understand. You didn't try to understand. And I can't keep doing this with someone who won't even see what's right in front of him." I opened my mouth to respond. But that's when it happened. The moment everything snapped. She suddenly raised her voice, tears spilling over, her whole body trembling with weeks of bottled emotions. "Because I love you, you idiot!" Her voice echoed across the empty parking lot. Sharp, painful, honest. I froze. My mind went blank. My heart dropped. Everything inside me felt like it stopped for a second. Pamela covered her mouth with her hand, breath unsteady, realizing what she had just said out loud. Her eyes widened, embarrassed, devastated. "Forget it," she whispered. "Just forget I said anything." Before I could move, before I could speak, she reached for her car door, pulled it open, and got inside. The door slammed shut. The engine started, and she drove away without looking back. I stood there alone under a buzzing street light, feeling my entire world tilt. It was the first time I understood just how blind I had been. I barely slept that night. I kept turning from one side of the bed to the other, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment in the parking lot over and over. Pamela's voice echoed in my head, raw and trembling. "I love you, you idiot." It wasn't anger in her voice. It wasn't sarcasm. It was heartbreak. Heartbreak that I had caused without even meaning to. By morning, something inside me had shifted. The fear that used to close me off didn't feel like protection anymore. It felt like a wall I didn't need, like something holding me back from the one person who had already tried to reach through it. I realized she wasn't pushing me away just to hurt me. She was done because she thought I didn't care. She thought she was alone in how she felt. And the truth was, I did care, more than I let myself admit. When I walked into the office that morning, the building felt different. Or maybe it was just me. I didn't wait for her to pass by. I didn't pretend everything was normal. I walked straight to her department. She was at her desk, headphones on, staring at her monitor as if she was trying to disappear into her work. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and even from the doorway, I could see she hadn't slept well either. Her eyes were tired, swollen around the edges. When she noticed me approaching, she winced instantly, jaw setting, shoulders stiffening, eyes narrowing as if she was preparing for another disappointment. "Pamela," I said, stopping beside her desk. She slid off her headphones slowly, bracing herself. "Lucas," she said flatly. "I'm really busy. I don't think. Can we talk, please?" "Not long. Just a minute." She hesitated, then sighed. "Fine. Conference room." We walked into a small glass-walled room. She crossed her arms and leaned back against the table, keeping her distance. Her expression was tired, defensive, already expecting something cold or logical or disappointing. I took a breath, the kind that feels like you're stepping off a cliff. "I didn't get it," I began. "Not because I didn't care, but because I was scared to believe you meant any of it." Her eyes flickered, not softening yet, but listening. "I've spent so much time convincing myself that people don't choose me," I continued, "that if I ever let myself hope, I'd get hurt again. And you were the last person I expected to feel anything for." She blinked, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. I could see the conflict in her eyes, wanting to trust me, but afraid of hearing something that would break her again. "I'm not asking you to pretend the last weeks didn't happen," I said gently, "or to forget everything I missed. I understand now. I'm here now, and I care more than I thought I could." A quiet second passed between us. "You hurt me," she finally whispered. "I know," I said. "And I'm sorry. Truly." She looked down, brushing her thumb across the edge of the table, breathing unevenly. I didn't move closer. I let her come back at her own pace. Then slowly, very slowly, she met my eyes again. "What do you actually want, Lucas?" she asked quietly. "Not what you think you're supposed to say. What do you actually feel?" I swallowed. "I want you. I want us. If you still want that." Her eyes glistened, not from sadness now, but from something softer, something hopeful she was trying to hold back. She took a shaky breath. "I don't want perfect," she said. "I just wanted you to see me." "I do," I whispered. "I see you now." The tension in her shoulders eased. She stepped forward, just one step, enough to close the distance she'd been guarding for weeks. Then her hand reached for mine carefully, like she wasn't sure if I'd pull away. I didn't. I held her hand gently, feeling her fingers tremble against mine. We didn't kiss. We didn't make some dramatic declaration. We just stood there holding hands in a quiet conference room with smudged glass and a flickering light. And somehow it felt like exactly what it needed to be. Simple, real, grounded. When we eventually walked back out into the open space, something between us had shifted. Not loudly, not instantly, but enough for the air to feel lighter. We took things slowly after that. Lunches turned into walks. Walks turned into late conversations. We laughed more. We apologized more. We tried, really tried, to understand each other. And each day, it felt like peeling back another layer. We were both afraid to touch before. 3 months later, we weren't hiding anything. People at work figured it out even before we confirmed it. Pamela teased me that they all noticed the hints even when I still didn't. But this time, I understood every single one. We never jumped into some dramatic love story. We built something steady, something honest, something where she didn't have to fight to be seen, and I didn't have to be afraid to feel. One evening, while we were sitting on my tiny balcony that barely fit our 2 chairs, Pamela leaned on my shoulder and laughed at something I had said. I looked at her, really looked, and felt that familiar truth settle quietly in my chest. All those signs I missed before, they weren't gone. They just led me here, finally ready to understand them. As for Pamela, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "You're still an idiot sometimes, you know." "Maybe," I said. "But at least now I notice things." She smiled, soft and warm. And that's how it ended. Not with a dramatic twist or a breakup or a cliffhanger. We simply chose each other, clearly, fully, without shouting across a parking lot ever again.